every time you have an idea, everything that you're putting out is just a reflection of how you feel about the world at a specific moment in time. And eventually you're gonna grow and you're gonna change. The world is always changing. The energy on this planet is shifting and evolving. So it's really, really important that you don't hold on to something for too long. You don't even fully realize it, but something that to you may not be super impactful could really, really resonate with someone or really help someone. What's good, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about creativity, and I'm really just going to be sharing some tips on how to be more creative, how to express yourself more freely, more authentically. I feel like this is something that we can all work on. I think we usually think about creativity and we think about art, music, content creation, writing, all these different like specific career paths and avenues. But honestly, like one thing that I've really been learning for myself is that creativity exists in all forms. Like no matter what your job is, no matter what you do, you are a creative in some way. Whether you are cooking a meal, when you're getting dressed every single day, when you're doing your hair and makeup, even when you like start a business, these things are all creative. They're all different ways of expressing yourself, of expressing the way in which you see the world. And I honestly would argue that your creative journey and your spiritual journey go very hand in hand. The more in tune you are with your creative self or your creative side, the easier it is to kind of be more in tune with your spiritual self as well. Like the easier it is to kind of access or to understand God and how God works and to see God in your everyday life. And I just recently read this book called The Creative Act by Rueben. And it took me a while to get through this because I was doing it with like a book club. But girl, this book really, like when I tell y'all, this book kind of almost felt like a bit of like a reminder of things that I already kind of knew within. You know, I've been making videos and posting them online for years now, but I really feel like lately I've just been way more in tune and more tapped into how to show up as myself more authentically and how to really enjoy it and without overthinking about like what are people going to think of me. And I know a lot of you are interested in either, you know, making content or whatever, starting a business. So I really want to share with you guys in this video some tips for just being your best creative self. I'm going to be pulling out some concepts from this book as well as The Artist's Way. I don't have a physical copy of that book, but I do have it on my Kindle. And I read that a year or so ago, maybe a bit longer. And that book also did teach me a lot when it came to, again, my spiritual journey and my creative journey and how to connect those two things. And so I'm going to be kind of sharing some different concepts just as well as, again, things from my own personal journey that I've learned that will hopefully help you on your journey, whether you make content or music or whatever it is that you do to express yourself. So first thing that's really, really important on this journey, I feel like it was like around the time that I was 20 that I started having my spiritual awakening. And I remember reading Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and he talks about this concept of being present and how your life can actually change a lot when you learn to put your mind in a more present state instead of worrying so much about the future or the past. We live in a very fast-paced society. There's technology. There's so many different things that are pulling us out of the present moment and making us kind of forget about the beauty that exists in front of us. You know, we have to go to the gym, we have to clean, we have to do all these things off our to-do list every single day. But it's also really, really important for our own like mental well-being in this world to romanticize our lives day to day. Us cooking our food, us walking down the streets, or, you know, hearing the birds and seeing the trees every single day. Like there is so much beauty in this world when you really kind of look at it and open your eyes up to see it and to witness it and observe it, right? But you kind of have to, again, in today's society, we kind of have to be a bit more intentional about romanticizing our lives and about being present enough and being conscious enough to see the beauty in our day-to-day lives. We kind of have to put it into a practice, right? So I really recommend, if you don't already have some kind of practice like stillness, meditation, maybe you take a walk every day, or maybe maybe you're working out, you're doing yoga, like have some kind of practice that kind of helps bring you back to the present moment. For me, like I really like listening to jazz and just maybe like cooking a meal, or when I'm cleaning, I like to listen to like a really good album. Like music is a really great way to do this as well, but just kind of learning how to do this in your day-to-day life. And again, putting that intention forward to kind of put yourself in a witnessing state, in an observing state, will really, really, really help you tap into your creativity, and it will really help you kind of start receiving downloads from the universe, from God. Because when you're witnessing the beauty in the world, when you're observing it, you're opening yourself up to messages. And there's a quote in Rick Rubin's book where he kind of put it very, very perfectly. Let me see if I can find it because I think I wrote it down. He says, art is an act of decoding. We receive intelligence from source and interpret it through the language of our chosen craft. And so again, when you're opening yourself up to the world around you, you open yourself up to receiving knowledge, receiving information, downloads, whatever. And then through the creative process, you learn how to process it and express it in your own way. And you do that, you often allow other people to see the beauty in the world too. Imagine the way that you feel when you listen to your favorite song, or maybe you watch someone on YouTube who, you know, they share something that you really resonate with. That feeling that you get of like, oh shit, I'm not alone, or like, you know, that reminder that you get even when you're like observing like a piece of art in a museum and you find it to be very beautiful and it moves you. That feeling you get is ultimately just a reminder that we are all connected. So yeah, it's just really, really important that you are opening yourself up to receiving so that you can have something to even share or talk about or write about or paint about in the first place. Like, you know, when you think about like like Bob Ross, right? He is someone who has the ability to see the beauty in you know, in nature. Before you even worry about expressing yourself or putting yourself out there, whatever, you have to be able to, again, observe and appreciate the beauty in everyday life, or whatever area of life that you find resonates with you or speaks to you the most. This can be a practice that you kind of put into place to kind of help you start doing this more naturally. Maybe you write down in your journal things that you're grateful for every single day, or maybe you say a prayer, or you worship, or you dance, or whatever. Just having some kind of way in which you express gratitude for the world around you, maybe for the things that you're observing and witnessing, kind of helps you process the world around you in a really positive way. Even when there's things happening that are not necessarily the most positive, like maybe you're going through a harder time, or maybe, you know, it's been an emotional week for you or whatever, even when you find gratitude in those things, it helps you kind of understand the greater purpose of them. Some songs that we hear, some music that we hear can be sad, or, you know, maybe we see a movie that's kind of sad or whatever. Like these things are created from a place of, you know, whoever created them also being able to recognize and find some kind of appreciation for the bad things or the sad things that they're going through as well. Because to be able to even express those things through some kind of, you know, beautiful work or music or whatever, it requires you to also, again, take a step back and recognize, okay, there is some beauty in this experience that I'm going through. There is some beauty in the fact that, you know, I'm going through a breakup right now and it's been a bit emotional, but I'm going to talk about it, or I'm going to sing about it, or draw about it, or whatever. You know, there is beauty in even the world with the way that it is today. And even though it can be kind of hard to see it, there is some beauty in it. Sorry, my camera died. But when you're expressing these things, again, whether they be good or bad, it's extremely healing, and it also helps other people recognize that, again, they are not alone. Even just finding appreciation for the fact that you do get to express yourself, like that's something that I also try to do pretty often. There's this one song that I love listening to that kind of reminds me of this. It's called Jaja Made Me to Be an MC. It's a reggae song, and he basically is like worshiping and thanking God for allowing him to make music and to be an MC.
Jaja made me to be a MC. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Thank you, Jaja, for this idea.
It just kind of reminds me, like, sometimes, like, whenever I'm like, oh, like, I have to film a video today, I have to edit, whatever, like, I'll put on that song and I, like, maybe dance or whatever, and, like, I'll just be reminded, like, wow, this is actually a really cool and beautiful thing when I think about it. Because, you know, I think also, like, kind of like a side note, when you start creating in a way where if you do start making money from creating, like if you ever start monetizing it, it can be very easy for capitalism to kind of like put you in a weird frame of mind when it comes to creating. So sometimes I think whenever you kind of find yourself in a place of like, oh, like, I don't really want to create something, or I don't really want to write in my journal, I don't really want to find gratitude or the beauty in today or whatever. Like, obviously, again, it's not always going to be easy, especially when you're going through something hard. But I'm saying this all to say that, you know, it can be very, very helpful to find some kind of practice or whatever that kind of puts you in a state of gratitude, and just being reminded that, you know, this world, this life is beautiful at the end of the day. And the fact that you get to express it and share it is also beautiful too. So Yeah, those are really important. The next thing that I also think is really important is to remember constantly and remind yourself constantly that you should be creating for yourself and not for others. So, again, we live in a society where you can create content, you can make music, you can make art, and all these things are things that you can get paid to do, and you can make it your full-time job if you want. And that can add this weird pressure around creating and considering what are other people thinking about what we're creating, how are other people perceiving us? What do people think about us? Do people even like us enough for us to even create anything? Like, is it even worth it? And these things are such valid things to feel, again, especially in today's society where everything is expensive, and if you can monetize your creativity, why would you not? But I just think it's really, really, really important, if you are creating in any way, whether it be your full-time job or something that you kind of just do as more of a side passion project, just remember that you are doing this for you ultimately. Even if you have an audience, everything that you are putting out, everything that you are expressing in any way that you do it, it's for yourself more than it's for others. Because again, your spiritual journey and your creative expression go hand in hand. They are very connected. So I really encourage you, especially in the beginning of you like learning a craft or starting to do a craft, focus on how does it make you feel? How do you enjoy doing it? What do you enjoy doing the most? Make it really about yourself. And if you can, I would really try to take off all pressure of worrying about money or views or, how many people are clicking or whatever. Like if you're posting yourself online, I know it can be very hard to do this because social media is designed in this way where we want views, we want money, we want all these different things. But I really, really encourage you, if you can, just kind of like strip yourself of that pressure and just post and try your best to approach creativity and expressing yourself from a very organic way. Because again, when you make it about other people or what do other people think or what does this one person think or is he watching my story, which I know I've been there, especially when it comes to like Instagram and stuff like that. When you make it about that, it's going to get in the way of you expressing yourself authentically. It's going to get in the way of you even wanting to show up and express yourself sometimes. So you just have to really make sure, again, you're making it about yourself. You're not making it about other people. Also, I would say to remember that not everything has to be monetized. It's okay to keep some things for yourself. Again, capitalism can trick us into thinking that everything has to be monetized and everything has to be, seen and shared or whatever, but it really truly doesn't. And for me, even when it comes to content, like I've had to learn for myself, like I do not like to record me in the gym as much. I don't like to like make content around me working out and all that stuff, just because I really do. I don't know. I really kind of find that as like my safe space, like my sanctuary. And for me, if I start making content around it, I know it will kind of get in the way of that for whatever. I don't know. I think it's just going to change the relationship with me in the gym and stuff. So I don't really film that much. And I'm also like really into writing. I like to write a lot, but I don't really share that because again, not everything has to be shared. And maybe one day it will be, like maybe one day, I write a book or something, but like that doesn't have to necessarily automatically be what I make it about. Does that make sense? Like sometimes it can just be for you to just enjoy it and to just do it because you want to do it. So yeah. Oh, also my next tip is to make sure that, I think it's so good to be a constant learner, like learn about your craft, try to get better at it. Obviously, you always want to be like learning new things, developing new skills, whatever. But also remember that you don't have to be perfect at what you do, and you don't have to be extremely skilled at all in order for you to just start doing it. Like sometimes actually I think the best way that you can learn is by doing, and that applies to both, that applies to you being a creative and expressing yourself through content. That also applies to you starting a business. Like every single thing that you do, sometimes you just have to kind of start. Like if you guys go back and look at my old videos, when I first started making YouTube videos, I was making them on my iPhone. I was editing them on iMovie, which is a pretty good editing software, but it's like, there's better things out there. And I was making videos about like how I do my hair. Like I was making like videos just for fun, like out of my bathroom. And I wasn't so much thinking about what other people thought about it, because to me, it was just more like fun. It was just more something that I really wanted to do. But also I wasn't good at it. Like if you go back and look at my old videos, they're kind of cringy, but I wouldn't be where I am today And I wouldn't be able to do this in a way that just feels super comfortable if I had not started from somewhere, right? So you have to start from somewhere. You have to be okay with being a little bit cringe first. Like, especially if you're making content, you're not going to show up on camera as like this perfect version of yourself who just has it all figured out. You kind of have to go through that initial period of just starting and doing, and again, not being perfect. Like, even for me, I'm not perfect at this, you guys know. Okay, sorry, my camera also just overheated. But basically all I'm saying is I have some videos that are not perfect, and they still resonated with people enough to where they were still seen, and they still impacted people in a positive way. So again, it's not about being perfect. It's not about having it all figured out. It's really more about you just getting the message out there. And then over time, you can start to get better at what you do, and you can start learning new skills and maybe investing, more money and more time into your skills. And that kind of brings me to my next tip also, which is to make sure that you are consistently showing up. You continue creating even when you don't feel like it. Just show up and just do it, because what happens is over time, it kind of starts to become like this muscle that you're working. And I think Heinz talks about this a lot, and he kind of expresses it in a really eloquent way. But he basically is like, over time, as you are again expressing yourself or whatever, it just becomes easier. It starts to feel more natural, and again, you get better at it over time because you learn that it's not about showing up and being perfect or having, maybe you're the kind of person who like you care more about quality than you do quantity, and I totally understand that. But you also have to recognize that like it's important to show up, because these ideas that you're getting, these downloads that you're getting from source, they're gonna come and they're gonna go. And Rick Rubin talks about this a lot in his book, and I really like the way that he kind of puts it. It's kind of like a cycle of death and birth, or like rebirth. Every time you have an idea, or every time you have a new project or video or piece of work that you are working on, eventually there's going to get to a point where you have to finish it and you have to just release it and let it go so that you can move on to the next thing. Again, everything that you're putting out is just a reflection of how you feel about the world at a specific moment in time. And eventually you're going to grow, and you're going to change, and you're going to learn, and your opinions are going to change. Like you're constantly going to get these new ideas. So it's really, really important that you don't hold on to something for too long. You want to make sure that you're showing up and just doing it and getting out whatever it is that you're thinking and feeling or whatever, because you don't even fully realize it, but something that to you may not be super impactful could really, really resonate with someone or really help someone. The world is always changing. The energy on this planet is shifting and evolving. Like we can feel it, especially like over these past few years. And so certain things that you put out, like if I put out a certain video right now that I thought about back in 2021 or 2020, or even just a couple years ago, it may not resonate the same today, because again, we are shifting, we're changing as a culture and as people. So it's just really, really important that you are just kind of consistently creating, you're consistently putting things out there, and you're not holding on to things for too long, because it could create some kind of blockages creatively. So yeah, that's a really, really important thing. Also, it's really important to kind of look at your relationship with discipline. And this is something that y'all know, me and discipline do not go together that well. Like, it's not that we don't go together, it's just that I used to look at discipline very differently, and I used to look at it as something that's very like, a punishment, like I have to be doing this or else I'm not going to get to where I want to be or whatever. But honestly, discipline and creativity can actually go together very, very well, and having a healthy relationship with discipline and implementing it consistently in your life can actually help you create and express yourself a lot easier and in a way that you actually enjoy more. So what I've learned for myself personally is that like I do not do well with very strict routines and regiments. Like I don't actually, like when I'm too strict with myself, I can actually end up sabotaging myself, and I can fall off very, very easily if I'm too strict. So I don't do well with a very strict routine, but there are things that I really, really enjoy in terms of, like I like waking up and having a slow morning. So sometimes I have to wake up early enough so that I can do that. I also really obviously enjoy going to the gym, but there's going to be some days where I don't feel like doing it, but the way that I feel after is always worth it. So having some kind of discipline is going to allow room for you to show up for yourself creatively the way that you need. It's going to affect how confident you feel. It's going to affect how much time you have to even create and to make time for that, especially if you have other things going on in your life. So it's just really, really important to kind of figure out what routines, what level of discipline work the best for you. And also recognizing that obviously it's going to be different from person to person. So just because someone else is doing something or someone else has a certain way of doing things does not mean that you have to also be doing the same thing. Like the Artist Way, for example, in that book, she recommends you do your morning pages and that you go on solo dates every single week. You know, some people may recommend that you wake up at 5 a.m. every single day and you have a meditation routine or whatever. Like every single person has different things that they will recommend. I really, really encourage you to kind of ask yourself, like when you are working on your craft, what makes you feel good and what did you do that day that maybe made you feel good when you were creating that day, or when you're not feeling your best or you don't feel like showing up. What did you do that day? What did you do that week? How did that affect the way in which you're creating? Because that will really help you kind of shape your routines and do it in like a loving way versus like a way of like, oh, I should be doing this because people say you should be doing this, or, you know, I don't, you know, again, like I have a different video on discipline if you guys want to see that, where I kind of talk about this in more detail, but developing a loving relationship with discipline and seeing it as something that is helping you versus something that is a form of punishment is going to be very, very, very helpful. Not only just in your creativity, but also just in you enjoying life in every area a lot more. And that kind of leads me into my next thing, which is remembering that what you consume matters. I feel like I say this like in a lot of videos, but it's really, really, really important that you're being conscious of what you're consuming, how much you're consuming it, how much are you on social media, how much are you watching TV, how much are you watching other people's content or their, you know, if you're an artist or maybe you make music, how much of other people's work are you consuming? Because sometimes if you're over consuming other people's work, it can lead to blockages in your own creativity. It can lead to comparison, it can lead to procrastination, and maybe you're just overthinking like how are you doing things yourself. Maybe you have some kind of boundaries in place to make sure that you are not doing that. Like for me, I kind of have like time limits on how much I can be on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, and sometimes I have to delete the apps if I'm on them too much. Like I actually did that a couple days ago. Just because sometimes I can scroll way, way, way too much and I have to kind of force myself to get off. So yeah, just have some kind of boundaries in place. Make sure that you are, again, being conscious of what also you're consuming. Like if there are certain things that, you know, certain music or certain movies, whatever, certain types of content that kind of put you in a lower vibration or put you in a weird headspace, then be aware of that. Be aware of how things make you feel. And also just be aware of like what mediums do you enjoy consuming the most? Like what inspires you? Put more time into consuming those things. So for me, I've noticed that like I really like movies. I really like reading. I also really like going to museums and, you know, even getting on Tumblr. Like these things make me feel very inspired. They kind of help me want to create more versus if I'm just like spending the weekend scrolling on TikTok or on Instagram. So also it's really important to be aware of like your surroundings, who you're surrounding yourself with, what environment are you in, because these things can very heavily impact your creativity and how much you even feel like creating. So just making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, making sure that you're putting yourself in environments and spaces that inspire you and make you, you know, just actually really help you want to elevate and just really help you kind of be the version of yourself that you want to be. And also just being aware of your environment, like in the physical sense. You know, for me, being in nature really inspires me, and just getting outside and making sure that I'm making time to observe nature, spend time in nature, but also like where I'm living. I noticed that it makes a huge difference. So when I was living in Texas, I was not feeling as inspired. I feel like for me, now that I'm finally living in a place where I do feel that I resonate with, my creativity and my ability to create content has, I don't know, just kind of improved. Like I feel a lot more inspired. I feel like I'm just in the right city to be creating. So, you know, if you can and if you do have control over this, maybe work towards even moving to a place that does inspire you as well, because again, your environment is really going to impact you. So, and again, obviously the people that you are around as well. So just make sure that you're being conscious of these things. It will make a huge difference in the way that you feel. So yeah, that's kind of it in terms of my tips, you guys. I really hope this video was helpful in some way. I hope it resonated. To me, all of this stuff, like literally everything that I'm kind of sharing in this video is really just advice on how to connect with yourself more deeply on a spiritual level, because again, that is directly connected to how you express yourself creatively and how comfortable you feel doing it. So I just really, really encourage you to kind of look at it from that lens, and being able to express myself and having a medium in which I can do that has been so healing for me, and it has just helped me learn so much about myself. I will be sure to leave a list of books that have kind of helped me on this journey a bit more, including the Rueben book and The Artist's Way. I also have some other books that I can maybe recommend, so I'll leave a list of them down below if you guys do want to check those out. Let me know in the comments down below, how do you enjoy expressing yourself? What are the things that you really enjoy doing in terms of creativity? Is it content? Is it music? Is it dancing or cooking? Whatever, let me know. Because I'm very curious. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jaja, for this idea. Glory, glory. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jaja, for this idea. Any MC one.